easier to do these press conferences after a win. It was an exciting ball game. I think it's going to be a game that our program will remember for a long time. I know I will. It also gives us a great opportunity as we get ready to play another top 10 team. Michigan State is a great football team, not only a great football team, but a great program. And so a lot to play for, a lot of challenges out there. The good news is I think we came through the game fairly healthy, and we should get Jay Jones and Sam Hardy back. So I know there's some people that are on the line, so at this time I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that are coming in via telephone line.
Coach, A.P. Harold with 991, the Big Dog in Evanston.
Advantage is it to have a common opponent with Michigan State this early in the season?
Oh, I think it sends a little bit of a familiarity. I guess I don't know if I said that right, but I mean, you're a little bit at least familiar seeing how you match up, but the schemes are so different. But it's probably more of I guess a factor is that our offenses and our defenses are probably more similar than most teams that we play. As a matter of fact, our offensive staff has, through the years, spent extensive time with the Michigan State staff, and so a lot of the schemes are similar. There are some differences, and then defensively they operate out of a four-down look. So I think the common theme there is more so on how each team plays.
Hey guys, if I could interrupt just a little bit.
Oregon and, say, Michigan State might be similar or in the same category. Your players, I'm sure, are aware of the two opponents being in the top echelon and so forth. Had a tough time against Oregon. How do you get a point across about now playing Michigan State?
Well, I think a lot of people have had a tough time against Oregon. You know, our guys are competitors, and we're well aware of the quality of program and the players that Michigan State has. You know, they've got countless preseason All-Americans throughout their roster. What we have found with our football team is they're a very resilient, resourceful group, and they embrace competition. And so it's another opportunity for us to go out and make steps forward as a football program, and that's how we're viewing this game. I know our guys will run down that ramp in Michigan State with the mindset to win the ball game.
Do you compare Oregon and Michigan State in any way?
Well, that was a question from a previous caller. There's some familiarity because you at least have a baseline. You know, you'll look at different personnel and you watch the tape. But the schemes are so much different that it really hasn't allowed. I mean, Oregon was a 3-4 team and a spread team. Michigan State is a pro-style team. Now there's elements of spread in there, and they're a four-down team. So that some of the schematics are different, but certainly the personnel has been somewhat helpful. Just seeing how we matched up against Oregon and how Michigan State matched up against Oregon.
How about in terms of national prestige? Are Oregon and Michigan State in the same class?
Well, I certainly think they are, and I vote in the coaches poll, and both of those guys are in the top 10. And when you get to this early time in the year, there's a whole group of guys that are vying for that top 4 spot, and these are two premier programs that enjoy a great national reputation, and it's certainly a great challenge for us.
Thank you.
You better.
Maybe from the Oregon game?
Now we comb through every game, and our coaches have done that, and our players will do the same. There are certain things that you look at. Always, whenever you're looking at the most recent game, I think that's important to take a look at. You do see some things that we can draw from. I'm sure you could probably draw the same comparison. Do they look at the Oregon game or do they look at what we did against Florida Atlantic? I know their coaching staff is very thorough. They're going to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, just as we are. Well, I certainly see a maturity level, and he does a lot of things. I saw him, run the ball well also, and so he's an excellent football player, and they would not be where they're at without the great quarterback play. And so I think another year of maturity and his ability certainly has come through.
You mentioned getting Jake and Sam back, so you expect them both to be able to play and just see how practice goes as far as who will maybe start, or think you probably see them both in there this week?
Well, we're going to, Jake will be for sure cleared during this week of practice. Sam's progress is going to be a little bit contingent upon how he comes around with that ankle. He suited up for the game, but his movement was not where it needed to be, and so we made a measured decision to go ahead and hold him, and we're in hopes that during the course of this week he'll get some meaningful reps and be ready to go. But I think we can definitely count on Jake is going to be in practice the whole time.
Coach, Michigan State really made their name last year playing that tough physical brand of defense. Are you seeing any difference in the way they're playing defense to their first few games this year?
Yes and no. I know that they've replaced some starters. Oregon was able to get some big plays on them, and that's some stuff that you didn't see a lot of last year. Now they had a bye week, and those remnants of the mental errors that really have nothing to do with some of the physical ability, whether they're cutting receivers loose and things like that. You didn't see that against Eastern Michigan, and so that's a trademark of good coaching and a good program. And I know that was a nationally. That was a profile game of the week, and I saw a significant improvement. And so we're going to anticipate them being set and ready to go defensively for us.
Coach, as far as having 3 wins, 2 of them so far have had big dramatic final drives. I'm wondering, when you're in one of those situations where it's a final drive to win the game, what does it take as far as mentality, leadership, all those things to be able to come through in that kind of a situation?
Well, it's a great question. And the comment, first of all, just beyond emotion and things like that, there's the preparation that comes into play. And there's a long-term relationship between our coaches and our players to create a vision and establish trust and instill confidence. Certainly play calling comes into play. But I think moreover, a belief that we'll figure out a way to win the game, and it may not look very clear, but somehow in the midst of some of these obstacles, we're gonna find a way to get it done, and it's been really encouraging to see our football team respond that way.
You mentioned even after the game against Florida Atlantic, Winters played as a true freshman. You mentioned Kamana could easily start or certainly play more. It seems like you're seeing more guys both in the safety positions and cornerback play. Is that based on competition? Is it based on other guys rising up and starters maybe not as good, or a little bit of both, or what's kind of been happening there?
That's a great point. It's a little bit of both. Robert Priester came into fall camp and showed a willingness to run and hit people. They didn't know sometimes which way to run and which guy to hit, but he was doing that. And so we looked at that athleticism and the competitive nature, and we found a way to get him on the field. And I thought last week, I know he had the one pass interference or defensive holding call, but caused a fumble. I don't know how many tackles he was in on. We need more and more competitive football players, guys that are just going to go out there and sell out and do everything they can Mach 1, and he's one of them. And so we're culling through our current staff. That's one of the responsibilities that we have as coaches, is constantly look for continual improvement, and sometimes that means switching personnel. And what we're doing is we're identifying the guys that are going to go out there and make plays and compete. They may make mistakes, but they're going to play as hard as what they can. And so you're seeing some of that infused into our lineups.
Greg, you mentioned, with Winters playing, that's your third true freshman to play, and barring an injury somewhere, is that probably, as we're a quarter of the way through the season, of the true freshmen, are those probably going to be the guys, or could we see more, or is that kind of, where does he stand there?
Well, we had taken a hard look at Ryan Cummings, and there was going to be a very good chance that Ryan was going to play. And he's got, somewhat of a knee injury right now. what time of year he's able to come back is going to have I guess a determining factor whether we play him or not. And then the other thing is we were down 2 guards, so we'll constantly be looking at our freshmen. But there's going to come a time too, Robert, where you got to look and say, okay, is the lion's share of our season completed, and do we want to redshirt this guy? So that's kind of where we're at.
Is this kind of a game that maybe puts a little smile on your face? I mean, it feels like this is a game that could be in the 1980s as well as now. Is this kind of game you kind of like as a head coach?
Well, there's certainly a familiarity. I've spoken with their head coach a couple times, and we have tons of mutual friends, and we have a great deal of admiration for their program. I would venture to say that they would respect the body of work that had been done previous and then now. And so you look and say, hey, this is a team that lines up, looks in the eye, has athleticism, is certainly not going to be a 3-yard in a cloud of dust, but well coached, disciplined. It's going to be a big challenge, but I know our coaches are looking forward to it, and I'm sure our players are as well.
Coach, you mentioned not 3 yards in a cloud of dust, but kind of if you go back to their offense last year, they did kind of predicate on running. It seems like, and you touched on Connor Cook a little bit, but they're flinging it around a little bit more this year.
Well, they've got some good receivers. As a matter of fact, their receiver coach used to work with us. They've got some good receivers, and he's a very capable quarterback, and the line protects well. And I think that's another step in maturation. They leveraged their defense extensively last year. It wasn't like they were completely one-dimensional, but this year they're certainly more explosive on offense, and they have a lot of different threats. And you saw that Eastern Michigan game. You put 70-some points on somebody, you've got to have some weapons, and it can't all just be running.
Craig, you mentioned to the familiarity with Coach D'Antoni. I know it was 30 years ago you and him interviewed for the same job at North Dakota State as a defensive backs coach. So are you close to him? Do you know him well? Do you speak with him?
Yeah, we've shared some conversations on the telephone, and that's about it. I can tell you from an outsider's perspective to see, I knew when he first got to be the head coach at Cincinnati and the job that he did there, and then the remarkable job he's done at Michigan State. In and around our country, he enjoys a great reputation as an excellent football coach and a better person.
Coach, one of those positions